Hello everyone, my name is Elitsa. I'm a PhD student at the University of Exeter and I research antimicrobial resistance in natural freshwater environments. So antimicrobial resistance is a growing healthcare crisis globally. So each year it has been estimated that about 5 million people are killed either directly or indirectly by antibiotic-resistant infections. And predictive estimates show that if we do nothing to stop this, in about 25 years or so, bacterial infections will once again become a leading cause of death globally. And here it would help to understand why bacteria are evolving resistance. It would help to understand what antibiotics are. So antibiotics are originally produced by bacteria, so they're molecules produced by bacteria and other microbes, and they use these molecules to communicate with each other or to fight each other off in the microbial warfare for space and resources. And what we did essentially was simply identify, we identified the specific antimicrobial molecules which were effective against killing the bacteria that we were interested in, and we found a way to mass produce these and weaponize them for ourselves. But of course, we have to remember that bacteria have coexisted alongside antibiotics for billions of years, so they have natural coping strategies or resistance mechanisms by which they can overcome these antibiotics. So one of the simplest forms of this is simply by maintaining a large and diverse population. So if you think about a population of bacteria, which typically consists of like billions of cells, there would be a few cells in that population that would naturally be a little bit different, but different enough to mean that the antibiotic is no longer able to recognize that bacteria, and the bacteria is no longer affected by the antibiotic. Now, this happens all the time. It's completely natural. It's called natural variation. And it doesn't really make much difference in an environment where all things are the same. But what happens when we take an antibiotic is we essentially wipe out all the sensitive bacteria, and we're creating this space for the resistant bacteria to reproduce and repopulate. So essentially it is antibiotics that are driving this shift towards antibiotic resistance, and the more antibiotics we use, the higher levels of resistance we're going to see. So this was the simplest kind of form of the way bacteria evolve resistance, but once a resistance mechanism has emerged, this can then be easily shared between bacteria. So they're literally able to extend these appendage-like pili by which they can transfer genetic information between each other. So what that means is that not only the evolution of resistance is rapidly accelerated, but bacteria can actually accumulate multiple resistance mechanisms within the same cell. And this is basically how we go from a resistant bacteria to a superbug, which is resistant to either multiple antibiotics or to all antibiotics that we currently have available. And this is where my PhD comes into place. So as I mentioned, I study antimicrobial resistance, specifically natural freshwater environments. And the reason why these are so interesting is because they already contain all the necessary components for the evolution of resistance. So on one hand, we have a diverse environment of bacteria already living in these environments, which typically contain a very diverse array of resistant genes, which they can share. And we already, we know that we are introducing human and animal pathogens through our sewage and animal waste, as a few people have mentioned already. And some of those pathogens will be resistant to the antimicrobials we are using because they're coming from us. And the final component, of course, alongside our waste, we're introducing antimicrobials, but other selective components as well, such as disinfectants, pharmaceuticals, even antidepressants, which is quite depressing. But all of these things are impacting bacteria and whether they are going to be whether they are going to have selective advantages to being resistant. But as a water company representative not recently, but I just watched the video recently, said we don't know what the health impacts are for the growing community of wild swimmers from this exposure to, all of these components. But what we do know is that we can see an impact of sewage pollution and animal runoff, we can see that the levels of resistance of both bacteria resistant to antibiotics, both resistant genes, increase downstream from a point source of pollution. So this would be something like an effluent discharge point or a farm, for example. We can see that the levels of resistance are higher downstream relative to upstream. And we already know that freshwater swimming has been associated with, it has been identified as an independent risk factor for acquiring a urinary tract infection resistant to antibiotics. And we know as well that over the summer months, swimming, freshwater swimming specifically, accounts for about 6% of the resistant cases acquired in the general population. And while there's no research on freshwater swimmers specifically, this is what I'm doing, but we know from previous research on the health impacts on coastal swimmers that surfers were found to carry antibiotic-resistant bacteria in their gut 3 times more likely than the controls. And interestingly, there was a recent study on coastal swimmers in Ireland, which found the exact opposite result, which is quite encouraging. But we don't know whether the same effect would hold out with river swimmers who are exposed to higher concentrations of pollution simply due to the nature of these water bodies. And we did actually check. I've been sampling the River Dart, which is this beautiful river in Devon. If you haven't been, I'd recommend it, even though it's a bit dirty. So I've been collecting water samples over the past 2 years, and this is just data from last year, and this year it hasn't really changed much. So what this figure shows is the levels of how many bacteria of E. coli we are seeing per 100 ml of water. And the reason why we're looking for this bacteria specifically is because it doesn't naturally live in rivers or anywhere in water. This bacteria typically lives in our guts, in both human and non-human animals. And the reason why it's in the water is indicative of fecal pollution. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see. So the blue line shows what the average prevalence of total bacteria, total E. coli bacteria per 100 ml of water. So it's quite high. This is, on none of the days the water tested is excellent. And in fact, there was just 2 days that we tested that the water levels were good enough to be sufficient. So this is total E. coli. This includes both resistant and susceptible bacteria. And on this slide, I'm only showing the proportion of how many of those bacteria are resistant. So this is percentages. The previous slide was numbers, counts per 100 ml, and this is percentage. So don't get a bit confused. I didn't do this very well. So what this shows is that the levels of resistance that we are seeing are higher than previously recorded, and which is kind of confirming what we already expected to see, because in the coastal waters, we can see that there's a high level of dilution of fecal pollution. So we wanted to see how is that impacting swimmers' guts, which is why I have been recruiting people over the summer to take part in the POSTIC study. If you have taken part, thank you. So with this study, I've been collecting fecal samples from both swimmers and non-swimmers from across the UK. And the first thing I do with these samples is I screen them for antibiotic-resistant E. coli. And the reason why I'm looking at this bacteria specifically is because it's classed as a high priority. It causes a high disease burden, both in terms of morbidity and mortality. There's very few treatment options for it. So if you do acquire resistant E. coli bacteria, we can only treat it with last resort antibiotics, which is quite concerning. Yeah, and the biggest issue with this bacteria is that it's highly transmissible. But E. coli, as I mentioned, naturally lives in the gut, so it can reside there without actually causing disease. But it is also what we call an opportunistic bacteria. So you can switch from a state of being harmless, to a state of being harmful. So healthy people can carry these bacteria without actually realizing it, without necessarily experiencing the consequences of this. But because it's highly transmissible, we are putting people at risk who are already vulnerable to these infections. And we're putting them at risk of developing an infection with already limited treatment options, which is not great. The other thing that I'm looking for from these samples is the bacterial community within the gut. So I want to understand whether swimmers' guts are affected by exposure to these environments where they're different in some ways. And I also want to understand whether it's perhaps the gut microbiome that is protective against invasion from these pathogens. Yeah, this is going to be probably data for next year, hopefully. So this is a map of all the swimmers that have taken part. Unfortunately, I can't share what I've found so far because the numbers are likely going to change. But what I can share is that we are seeing numbers similar to what the surfer study showed previously. Of course, again, these numbers are likely going to change because, as you can see, the numbers of non-swimmers are quite sparse. We're now trying to ramp up the non-swimmer participants. But if you are a swimmer or a non-swimmer and you still like to take part, there's about 110 kits waiting to be sent out, so you're welcome to take part. You can Google the Pustic study at the University of Exeter, and you can find this link where you would be sent to a sign-up form. Just a final quick thing. This is the second study that I'm running, which is kind of being overshadowed by the Pustic study. So this study is not relevant to antibiotic resistance. It's looking specifically at health outcomes associated with swimming. So this is gastrointestinal illness, vomiting, fatigue, skin conditions, ailments, and stuff like that. So in this study, anyone over the age of 16 can take part. If you have taken part before, please do it again. It only takes 10 minutes or less. And I still need a lot of participants for this study as well. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Hi.
Do you ask the swimmers whether they put their face in the water or not?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And have you got a QR code or anything for both those?
Yes,
Oh.
sorry.
Thank you. I knew that.
Yeah.
How is it transmitted back to you?
So, well, we can't claim that we're getting it from the water directly, but we can infer. So we're accounting for various confounding factors that could be, for example, if you're working in a healthcare setting, you're more likely to carry these bacteria than not. If you work with animals, you're more likely to carry these bacteria than not because you're exposed to antibiotics yourself and stuff like that. But we are accounting for those things, and we're trying to find whether there's a link strong enough for us to claim that there's a higher risk of exposure, but it is just by swallowing water, essentially. And the higher the numbers of E. coli in the water, the longer the stay in the water, then that increases your chance of some of that bacteria surviving your stomach acid and becoming established. It can pass through. If you do test positive, it's possible that if you stop swimming for a little bit or change where you swim, it's possible that you will shed that bacteria out. It's not necessarily part of your gut microbiome, but we can detect quite more often than we want to. Yeah.
Any questions?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
Researchers will know that getting anybody to do anything is difficult, and you managed to get people to poo on a stick and send it through the post. How has recruitment been, and how are you getting to all corners of the UK?
It's been really, really good. It's been really interesting because it has been really difficult, but people have been incredibly helpful, including you. Everyone has been. I'm not from here. I don't know many people, and I'm not the world's most social person, so it's a little bit difficult. But I have been relying on people, really nice people, who have sharing the study a lot, especially over the last month when the media hasn't been interested in taking part. So it's been really, really great to get all that support. Sorry. Okay.